Hello, everyone.
Hello. So fun to see everyone signing on.
Yeah, we'll give it just a couple of minutes just to get everybody in here. Feel free to use the chat and say hello and tell us where you're joining from. We love to see where everyone is. During the webinar, if you do have any questions, you can put them in the chat, but it's better to keep track of them in our little Q&A area. So go ahead and add anything that you would like us to touch on at the end. Add that in there.
Hi, Crystal. Nice to see you. Yes, Q&A is a lot easier to keep track of for me and to see the questions.
All right.
David's here from Chicago and Naples. Naples is like a Midwest hotspot.
It is. Hopefully there. It's beautiful though. Okay, so it is almost 1:02, so we will go ahead and get started. Thank you guys all for coming. I am Lauren from my DOMA, and we have Desi Creswell with us today, and she is going to talk all about detoxing your business in the summer and all that good stuff. So at the end, she will touch on some questions. So again, make sure you put those in your Q&A, and we will get to them at the end. Desi, take it away.
All right, sounds good. Welcome, everyone. So glad to have you here. As Lauren said, I am a Master Certified Life and Business Coach for interior designers, and I'm going to be leading this workshop today. We are going to be actively working together to detox your business. And this is definitely a process you could use any time of year. I thought it'd be especially fun to do it in the summertime though, when we have that season change, life circumstances are often changing. And I really wanted this to be an interactive workshop. So I was so glad that my DOMA was on board for that. I did create a workbook to guide you through this detox process. So if you haven't already downloaded it, it was going to be sent out in an email, but Lauren thought there might have been a glitch with that. So Lauren is going to put the link for the workbook in the chat, I believe, so that you all can download it. It's going to take you to a web page. You'll just enter your information and the workbook will be sent to you. And if you don't have access to a printer, you can just pull the PDF up and write it down on a sheet of paper or a notebook that you have handy. Any of that works. The address is desid.com/detox. So it's Desi, my name, DESI, and then ID, like interior design.com/detox. If anyone's having trouble with that, please put that in the chat so that Lauren can see that and make sure that you're all set. Because I want you to be able to do this on the call with me, so it's not yet another thing to go do after the class is done. Now, let's talk about why you're here. Might be feeling kind of flung into summer. Sometimes that happens. I think that happens pretty much all the time, right? The season kind of just, I don't know, at least here in Minnesota where I am, it's like we wait and we wait and we wait. And then all of a sudden there's no spring and we just get flung into summer and school's done. I've got 2 kids and there you have it. So we're all here. Maybe you're feeling pulled in just too many directions with wanting to spend time on your business, but also really wanting to spend some time for yourself, have time for your friends and family. Maybe you're taking vacation or time off or even have family visiting. I know that we've had what feels like a revolving door in our house, in our cabin, but all good things, but it does mean things need to sometimes go. Let's see, you haven't received the workbook, but did follow the link and put in my email. Katie, I would say check your spam and let me know if it's in there. And if you just put it in, it might take just a minute to come through. And if not, you want to post it in there, just let me know. I think there's also something that really happens during summer as an entrepreneur. We get flung into summer, and then we kind of hit this having the same problem. Let's see. Could you let me know, Katie or Stephanie, that you haven't got okay, it says link says subscription confirmed, but not in the fam. So you got a let's see. Oh, Leanne says it just takes a few minutes. Keep refreshing. Okay. All right, good. I'm glad that's working. Okay, perfect. All right. But anyway, so I think something interesting happens with like, we kind of are like, oh my God, summer's so crazy, da, da, da. And then all of a sudden it's fall and we realize we're headed into the last quarter of the year. And there's things that we committed to last January that are still kind of open loops, or maybe didn't get started. They're still on the table and they haven't really gotten a lot of traction. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, we have 3 months left of the year. I need to get this done. And then there's all this pressure, right, around getting it all done, fitting it all in, or maybe there's self-blame and judgment around not having started yet. And this really makes it the perfect time to detox, because if you want to make time for new things, we have to shed some of the old. With a lot of the clients that I work with, they're overloaded, they've got too much on their plates. And so we need to clear some of that clutter. And that's part of what we're going to do today. And this is really also an excellent time to take a look at what is going well in your business too, not just the things you haven't done, so that you can really lean on that during this time when we're renewing with those summer months. In nature, we've got summer blooming, the trees are in full bloom here for certain. And, it's a great time to be taking a look at this. What I really want is for you to feel more grounded, not feel like you're scattered in a million different places, and really feeling like you are in control of your business versus the business controlling you, or you being at the effect of all the things that could possibly be going on. And I also really want you to feel empowered. That's something that's so important for me working with clients, is to feel empowered in their decision-making process and empowered around the decisions you make today, so that you can move forward in a way that feels more balanced, in a way that is really unique to you. You're absolutely in the right place if any of what I'm saying is resonating, because this is what we're going to be doing today. By the end of our time together, what I want for you is to be very clear on what you want to keep and what needs to go, and release whatever is weighing you down, and be able to prioritize the projects that you have in mind so that you can start taking action on what you want, or know what you're going to wait on. And using the power of constraint to focus your time and energy, so that even if you are scaling back a little bit in this time, you are going to continue to move forward. This is, of course, going to be actionable and give you something you can tangibly move forward with. So I'm really excited to dive in and really make some intentional decisions and set some priorities, so that the most important things get done, but there's also space for you this summer. I see familiar names on this attendee list. So hello to all of those who I already know. And hello to everyone who is new to me. I'm going to give you an introduction briefly, just if you are new to my world. Again, Desi Creswell, and I'm a master certified life coach and business coach for interior designers. Hi, Campbell. So great to see you. And I started out in commercial interior design, and then eventually transitioned to having my own residential practice, thinking that that would be the key to busting through all of my burnout and workaholic tendencies. And of course, I found out that that wasn't true, right? I mean, I kind of can laugh about it now, but changing my role, meaning starting my own business, really did not solve anything. I brought all of those old thought patterns and behaviors right with me into the new business. And I started, again, treating myself like I was a robot that had high, unrealistic expectations of this continual high output without ever having any concern for if it was sustainable or the way that I wanted to be working, or even really the best way to be working in a business, which I would argue it's not. Go, go, go is not the best way. We need to learn to pace ourselves in a sustainable business. And really, I found mindset coaching when I wanted to answer this question of how much do I want to be going back to work after taking some time off after my second child. And there's a whole backstory there that I'll spare you. But, I really wanted to be intentional going back into my business as a designer, and mindset work is the way that I did it. No amount of time management, goal setting strategies, none of that is going to solve the problem of being overwhelmed, being stressed, anxious, pulled too thin, unless you develop your mindset and have the ability to manage your mind and be somebody who is willing to lean into that version of you who does have constraint, who has focus, who is making intentional decisions, who is not people pleasing at every other turn. I think that's another really big common one with my clients. So I am also the creator of Out of Overwhelm, where we cover all of those topics. That is all born from my experience myself, and also working with over 100 clients have gone through that program. So I do want to let you all know, if you're interested in continuing on with this work, we are kicking off the next round next week. And I do have a few spots available still for the program. It's a very small, intimate group. So you'll have information in your workbook on the program if you're interested in joining us. Now, let's just go over a little bit of our plan for the day. I want to remind you that this is your time. This is your time to focus on you and your business. And as we go through the workbook, you are going to have times to sit and reflect and make some decisions. And I really strongly suggest you use the time as you've decided to set it aside, right? It's going to be tempting when we go to the workbook section to check your email, look at your phone, see if anyone texted, see if you're needed, see if there's a fire to put out, right? And I really want you to give yourself the gift of this time. And if you're watching the replay, then use that work time as well. Just because you're not here with me live does not mean you cannot give yourself the full presence of your attention. And there's, again, maybe one more time, if you could just put the link in the chat, just in case anyone has been signing on as we go, just to make sure that we've got it. Of course, I'm going to be answering some questions at the end. I love Q&A, happy to support you in any way possible. So those will go in the Q&A box. And now we're going to get started. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And let's see here. Where did my Zoom window go? All right, now we're in business. All right, the summer detox. So we're going to ditch the time and energy drains to create space for you and your top priorities. Let's just talk a little bit about why you do this detox. The first piece is it's really easy to start running your business on default. This is just so easy to do. We continue doing what we've always done, whether it worked or not, or we continue to do something that worked that's no longer producing the results that we want, and we haven't given it a second thought. And a lot of times there's the shoulds happening in our business where we think we should do things a certain way, and it's not working for us. So we need time to examine that. The other reason that we want to do this detox is because we are doing something we've always done or the way we've done it, even though there's a change in circumstances. So with summer, circumstances often change quite a bit. For me, it's like kids are in school, we're on vacation, I've got different working hours, and we can't expect ourselves to perform in the exact same way when circumstances have changed. And I want you to just really be aware of this, not just for this detox, but as we move into fall. Now's a great time to be thinking about fall and winter and what that looks like, because we're going to have another shift coming. And so just making sure that you're aware of what are you expecting of yourself, and does that expectation match your current reality? Super important. The purpose of this detox is really to remove the things that aren't working or that you simply don't have bandwidth to properly sustain. And this is going to allow you to make time for what's important to you, both personally and professionally. This could be a great exercise, as I was just thinking about this, to do not just for your business, but for your family as well. So I'll just leave that as a side note. We're going to get started with the workbook just shortly, but we need to get started with the awareness and intention. We have to have that "you are here" point to get started. And we're going to do a little curious evaluation. I always say curious. Curiosity is one of my favorite emotions. And we want to evaluate with curiosity versus judgment, because when we judge ourselves about what we should be doing, what we're not doing, that we think we should be doing, how we should do it, that really blocks us from gaining the insight and wisdom that's available through review and reflection. So we want to evaluate with curiosity and know what our starting point is. And with that starting point, we're also going to look at where you want to go. Because if we don't know where we want to go, it's quite difficult to get there, right? It's like hopping in your car and knowing you have a place to go, but not setting the GPS and just wandering around, hoping that you are going to bump into this location. There's also going to be a question around how you want your summer to feel. And I thought I'd just share what I have been thinking about a lot for my own summer. And that is this idea of relaxed focus. And there's a few things that I've been working on very intently. I am very focused on certain aspects of my business. And there's also this relaxed nature to it. It's like this ebb and this flow of diving in when I'm really working. And then when I'm not working, I'm relaxed. And even with the business vision, right? I'm thinking a lot about what I want to be offering in the fall and the winter to support my clients. And there's lots of space in my brain with this relaxed focus to be brainstorming, to let ideas marinate, and then be ready to make some decisions, which I'm starting to do now, versus that real forcing energy that sometimes can come in. What I did want to say about this is there's a list of words in the workbook that you can use. And what I want you to do is to use these words as a filter for you to make decisions about how you're spending your time, energy, and attention this summer. So it could be a great way to, when you have a request for your time, energy, or attention, when you get an idea of something you want to implement, you can run it through that filter of, does this fit like relaxed focus, or whatever the words are that you choose. So now we're going to do our reality check and set your intention. That's the first part of the workbook. And I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that, maybe a little bit less. So go ahead, grab your workbook. And fill out that part of the workbook. have like one more minute here, and then we'll come back together. Okay, now that we've got our starting point, we're going to get going with the detox part. And the questions that I'm going to be asking you are really aimed at helping you uncover what you need to remove or what you need to detox in order to create the summer experience you want and the results that you want, right? I always talk about with my clients, we don't do in our business just to do, we do to create certain results. We always want to be thinking about what are we creating through the doing. I'm going to give you a few principles to the detox so that can guide you as you answer the questions. So the very first thing is give yourself the gift of the truth with this workbook. No one will look in it. You can throw it in the trash if you want after you're done, if you don't want anyone to see that maybe they're on the list, right? But give yourself the gift of the truth. You do not have to do anything with this. I love giving myself permission to not do anything with something like this detox, or when we're thinking about a vision that feels a little bit big and a little scary, right? You don't have to do anything with it right now. I, of course, encourage you to do something with it, but sometimes taking that pressure off of, oh, if I put this into daylight, I'm going to have to take action. Taking that off actually makes it more easy to see what's really there and then move forward with it. The other piece is you can remove something from your business or your life without making it wrong or bad. It could be simply something that is not a priority right now. You could think it's important, but it's not the most important thing to you. Or that chapter could just be closing. And then the third part is really that detoxing is about honoring your capacity. And there's a podcast episode that I did on this, the Interior Design Business CEO podcast is my podcast. So you can definitely check that out. But again, just because you want to detox something doesn't mean that it's not important or not, not something that you even want to do eventually. Like it might be something that, yes, you've decided I want to do that at some point, but it might be a not right now because you don't have capacity, meaning you just don't have the time or energy or support to get that done right now. You can have a lot of great ideas. It just doesn't mean you need to take care of all of them all at once. I'm going to go through the detox categories that you're going to look through and write on in your workbook and share a little bit more on each of those so I can prep you for those. Relationships. So you could think about client relationships, vendor relationships, contractors, your employees, all those things. Also under this category, I want you to consider difficult conversations that you need to have or conversations you've been putting off. The next one is commitments. So who or what are you committed to right now that you actually don't want to be committed to now or ever? Decisions, unmade decisions are such a drain on our mental load and our energy and time too. Like if we think about all the time that is spent looping in indecision or deciding and then redeciding and then deciding and redeciding, it's a lot of time and energy. So think about that. Overing is a big one. I recently shared another podcast episode on how I reclaimed an additional 5 hours of time per week when I thought there was no way I could streamline my week anymore. And overing definitely showed up for me, even though this is something that I've done a ton of work on and have detoxed a lot. There were still tiny little areas. So when I say overing, I'm thinking about like over perfecting, tweaking and tweaking on things that maybe aren't going to make a measurable difference, over supporting. So your staff member does something and instead of offering constructive feedback so that they learn from it, you just hop in and take over. And also the over controlling of like not letting people support you in your business because you think that nobody else can do it the way that you do it or as good as you can do it, which, isn't always true. I would say mostly not. All right, self-talk, right? We're so hard on ourselves. So I'm curious what would happen if for the next even just 90 days or even just today, honestly, you decided to detox that negative self-talk and start being kind to yourself and start noticing what's going well for you, what you're doing right. And then projects and strategies that need to be implemented or finished, right? We want to talk about that open loop, right? So what's kind of like, what are all of those half finished things, or like you took a bunch of notes and we're going to decide to do something, but then you haven't, like make a decision on if you're actually going to do it or not right now. Again, it doesn't have to be like a not ever. It could just be a not right now. All right. And then let me just think here. So we're going to do the workbook again. So now is the time to do that detox for your business. I'm going to give you some time here, probably about like 6 or 7 minutes to go through that. I want you to just write the first things that come to mind. Do not overthink this. Just let it all come out and go through those categories, and then we will come back together again. Give just another minute here to wrap up. And as you're wrapping up, or if you're already done with the detox, I want you to just take a second here and reflect on the experience. If there was anything that came up for you during the detox, this is something that surprised you. Perhaps there were themes or patterns that were emerging. Maybe there was one category that felt especially predominant. And certainly this is something we can do questions and coaching on at the end. The other thing you can think about is, did writing out this detox feel like a relief? Or did it feel a different way? Just take a second to reflect. And as we go on, we're going to start making some conscious decisions. And we've really talked a lot about what you don't want to include, what you want to detox from your business. But now we're going to get to talk about what you do want to devote your resources to. And really, when I say conscious decisions, what I mean is making decisions on purpose versus default. So many things that we do throughout the day are just default decisions where we're just acting out of habit or because that's what, someone else does. And so we decided that's the way we should do it without really considering what decision we're making. And this could be an opportunity to potentially add something in. It also could be something that you want to sort of turn up a notch in your business. But I always want you to be thinking about what can you remove or simplify or get more support with if you do want to bring in additional things into your business, whether that's, actions or implementation of certain things. This is really not a chance to shove a bunch of stuff into the space that we just cleared. I just want to be very, very clear about that. Because that is our tendency when you're in the pattern of overworking and being overstretched with your bandwidth. It can feel kind of uncomfortable noticing those open spaces or having a little bit of breathing room in your day at first. So I just want to normalize that is very common for my clients when they start to create more of a sustainable pace for themselves. It feels a little bit uncomfortable at first, and that's totally fine. We just want to remember that that's part of the process and not start to jam other things in to try and get rid of that discomfort, because eventually you will make that your new normal. Now we're going to talk about the slow up process. And what do I mean by slow up? This is a word I just made up. But basically, what I want you to do is I want you to slow down that frenetic pace to make room for consistent, sustainable progress, which is actually what's going to be generating momentum for you so that you can be more effective in less time. I know that's counterintuitive, but I've seen it time and time again, both in my own business and with my clients. This is just the way that it works. When you slow up, you're concentrating your effort, and that actually increases the potency of the energy and attention and actions that you take so that you're able to slow your pace while actually producing more better results. Again, I know this can be hard to believe sometimes when you're not used to it, but really this is what happens. And then also what happens is you lessen the mental overload and overhead really of having all these things that are swarming around, unfinished, unmade decisions, things that you're ping-ponging back and forth between and coordinating and like slowly kind of kicking the can down, you're able to really concentrate your efforts and make a nice clean kick across that soccer field. All right. I'm picturing like you taking tiny little kicks for 10 different soccer balls. And instead of just like moving one a couple of inches, you're taking one giant kick. And that's what you do in the slow up. I kind of got ahead of myself, but basically the same thing. So I want you to start to think about what you are going to start to commit to. And included with this is making sure you're on your own to-do list. This is really important. Okay. So what we're going to be doing is you're going to be committing to one thing for the summer, one thing you're going to focus on, one thing personally and one thing professionally. Again, this is going to be just really narrowing your focus so that you can slow up, gain that traction, and close some of these loops so that you can move into fall with a new focus, right? I'm going to give you some examples because we don't need to have this be something that you're committing to that is huge. Just to be clear on that, it could be like taking a 10-minute walk break during your day. Does not need to be, oh, now I'm going to do yoga for an hour every single day through the rest of the summer. It could be like just being very clear with yourself that you're going to dismiss maybe an accountant that you've hired who isn't delivering on what you asked them to do, and it's kind of been dragging out and you're not sure. So you're going to dismiss that accountant and then hire a new one. So these don't have to be huge, huge projects, but I want you to pick something to focus your time and energy and attention on for the summer. And lastly, there's going to be a space where you can give yourself permission to slow up this summer, because a lot of times I see us waiting around for someone else to give us permission to be in a place of sustainable growth with our business, or to take things at the pace that works with our current circumstances. And the only person that's ever going to give you permission is you. So I wrote a little line in there for you to give yourself your very own permission slip. So let's take just a little bit of time to define your slow up and then write yourself that permission slip. And I'll give you like 3-ish minutes just to make sure that we've got time for lots of questions and just this last little bit of information that I want to give you. Give you just one more minute. All right, I've got just a few more things that I want to share with you before we open it up for questions. So whenever I am making a plan, I always like to identify obstacles as part of my planning process. And that is a way to get ahead of them so they're not surprising you and kind of throwing you off track. So I want you to just take a minute to consider what could get in the way or prevent you from taking action on this plan, from following through on the detox. And also following through on what you've committed to as well. So these are some potential obstacles. Again, I want to give you some awareness here that, might help you to identify some of these obstacles. So like being reactive, not having proper boundaries or communication guidelines in your business, people-pleasing tendencies, not making the time, already like needing to shrink down some commitments and like not being willing to say no, all or nothing thinking. That's a big one here. Like it's either I'm going to detox everything or I'm going to detox nothing, or I'm going to commit to everything or I'm not going to do anything. So another one, believing you have to earn rest, that you have to accomplish a certain amount before you can take a break. Reluctant delegation. This is another one that I work with clients a lot on. And then, oops, I have a typo there. Sorry about that. Self-accountability, right? That's another big one where we make a commitment to ourselves and then we have to be self-accountable and follow through and treat ourselves with the same level of respect and commitment that we give to others, especially to those clients. So think about what obstacles are resonating the most of the ones I shared, or maybe some others popped up. And then think about how are you going to address those obstacles so that they are no longer such an issue. That's something that I teach my clients is creating actually a strategy around the obstacle, and that becomes part of your plan. So that way you know to anticipate them and you already know how to deal with them before they become an issue. And I also want you to know that you've got your plan here that we walked through. And I'm so excited that you have that plan. I'd love to hear what came up for you during it. And I also want you to know that you do have support available to you in following through with this plan, and of course, getting support with lots of other things as well. The work that I do inside Out of Overwhelm, which is my group coaching program, we talk about all of those obstacles that I just identified, plus so much more, especially with mindset and time management and so many great topics. So I did include information in your workbook about the program. It is starting next week. I have space for you to join, and I can definitely get you all set to be part of that group. And it is a very intimate group, less than 15 designers. Plus, I'm offering a bonus of 3 private coaching sessions with me as well for this round. So you get the benefit of that intimate group along with private coaching, which is pretty amazing. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. You can email me at desi@desiid.com if you have questions about that. But now I want to open it up to questions. I love Q&As, part of when I do these workshops. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I see we've already got one question in there. Feel free to share anything else, or just if you have a reflection on what this was like to go through these exercises. All right, so Marlea, I think that's I hope I'm saying your name correctly, asked, how do you find the balance between keeping a consistent pipeline but not overwhelming yourself? So this is a great question. And what I want you to consider is, I think part of what's going on in the background with this question is the idea that you have to take on everyone who comes in. So when we have a consistent pipeline, or more than enough, that's the best thing ever, because then we can tighten up our client filter. That's another thing that I work with clients on, is identifying who that ideal client is and getting crystal clear about how they weed people out, how they say no to them. And so I would say be very clear on how many clients you can take on, and looking at what your project timelines are so that you know when the real active periods are for your projects or when deadlines are going to be happening. And, looking at that to figure out, when could I onboard another client? I wouldn't worry so much about having an overwhelm of clients. I would just be consistent with your marketing. And the more consistent you are with your marketing to fill that pipeline, the tighter your client filter can get. And then we work on saying no and really like streamlining your process for selecting those ideal clients. And if you have any follow-up questions around that, just let me know. Happy to talk more about that. Let's see. Another question is tips to stay accountable to yourself when things pop up that are not urgent but important. Okay, so great question again. One of the things that I think is really helpful for this is making a plan for when you're going to address the important thing, but it's not in the moment, right? So if it is something that just like pops into your head and you want to remember it, you can just make yourself a note. But then, make it a part of your planning process to say, okay, so this is what came through. And now I've got a plan for what I need to get done or what I need to address, when I'm going to do it, and how I'm going to do it. Because that's really the challenge, is your brain is being presented with some new input and it wants to solve for it. Our brains like to solve problems, and often they're creating urgency for us, even when there isn't urgency. So when we create a plan and can remind ourselves, nope, I got this, I know when this is being taken care of, it can really lessen that internal urge or pull to dive in right in that moment, and which I think is what you're asking about. So if you have any follow-up questions about that, happy to answer, Crystal. All right, who else has questions? I'm happy to answer anything and everything. I'm awfully curious if anyone had any categories that seemed really like, oh, this is something that definitely needs to go, or where you had much more to detox in a certain category than in others. All right, you're typing a question now. All right, awesome. Let's see. Stephanie, let's see. So how do you address personal tragedy when that comes up? Tragedy may be a bit of a strong word when personal problems come up. So there's, depending on the situation, right? So like, I want to make this applicable to everyone here with a range of options or ways you could support yourself. So one of the things that I teach in my program is to have margin, which is unplanned time during your week, so that when either things pop up that are emergencies in your business or emergencies for your personal life, you have wiggle room. Often when I see people approaching managing their time and schedule, they stack things like a set of dominoes. And if one domino falls, all the others are just done. They're gone, right? And so when we build in margin or that wiggle room, then we've got space to absorb. Sometimes that's not enough space though, right? So you're using the word tragedy, which makes me think that it's something that is possibly going to take up, quite a bit of time, or maybe have you out of your business for a week. And when that kind of thing happens, there is really no amount of planning that you can do to prepare yourself for that. So what I would say is that's when you have to further, like, even just think about this workshop detox. You have to really decide what are the important priorities, what has to get done, and really what can go, what can be done by others, what can be delayed in some way. Often when something big comes up, we're going to have to say no to things that we want to say yes to, but they still need to be a no. So it really becomes a situation where you have to get, I call it ruthless with your deletion and your delegation. So really, really leaning on those two things so that you can deliver if you need to deliver, but only the very most important things. Alejandra, I saw you were typing a question, but then now I don't see one. So let me know if you, oh, there it is. Okay. I recently have a project lead, a past client with an unrealistic budget. I basically told her this budget was not realistic to do all she needs plus my design fee. She was hoping I'd offer a more DIY approach. However, I don't offer that type of service anymore. She said she'd think about it and get back to me. I said, okay, but didn't offer to lower my fee or squeeze her project into the budget. I'm feeling guilty and second guessing myself now. It's taking up so much time in my mind this summer. Okay, totally understand this. And as your business grows, you're going to have past clients come back and they are no longer going to be ideal clients because your ideal client's going to evolve. And what I would say is taking a look at why you feel guilty is a big one. And then also with the second guessing, I would think about what do I want to say to myself when my brain presents this, what it feels is a dilemma, right? So you have a clear decision that you don't do those types of projects and that you're not willing to adjust your fees. And so probably you like your reasons for that. So you're going to need to actively bring yourself back to, this is the decision I made. This is the reason I made it. And remind yourself of why you really love those decisions. So bringing yourself really back to that present moment of this is the here and now. This is why I'm doing this. And that should help calm the brain down. All right, Katerina says, dealing with commitments outside of the business is hard to juggle during the summer. Any advice how to handle them? Katerina, maybe if you gave me some specifics, I could answer more specifically, but I would just say in general, we always want to be planning our business alongside planning our personal life. So if you know that you have lots of personal commitments outside of work, we want to take that into account when you're thinking about what your work commitments are for the summer. On a like real granular planning basis, I always suggest looking at your month and your weeks alongside your personal calendar and your work calendar together. Like I have those two things combined. I've got different layers that I can turn on and off if it gets kind of too visually messy. But we want to know like, oh, this afternoon I'm going to be out because of this personal commitment. So that means I'm going to have 5 less hours this week than I typically do. How am I going to prioritize and plan to make the most important things, ensure that those are going to get done? All right, hopefully that's helpful. If you have more questions, let me know. Anonymous says, can you recommend strategies to keep on track? I try to create a plan and schedule for every day, but things always come up. And then I end up working into the evening to get all the things done on my checklist. So Anonymous, this is where I would really lean on that idea of margin so that you're giving yourself some space for things that come up. I'd also really be questioning if the things that come up need to be addressed that day, or if it's something that could be delayed until another day. And then I would be wondering too, like, why are the things popping up? like actually working backwards to like, were there things that I could have maybe anticipated? Was there information that I should have included to begin with that possibly could prevent that from happening? All right. Virginia says, how do you handle an opportunity to help out a out of town friend by offering to do an e-design for her den? She's thinking 30 to 40 an hour, and my hourly rate is 175 an hour. So far, she's not moving forward with me. Not my ideal client, even if it's an opportunity to fill my zero pipeline. Keep trusting and waiting for that ideal client. So I would like look at what you'd be doing with that time, Virginia, if you weren't helping the client. And is that a trade-off that you want to be making? So if you really want to be prioritizing getting in front of your ideal client, would you be using that time to do that? Also, because it's e-design, I have to wonder how many hours it would actually take you to complete the project. And it's possible that if you were to look at like how many hours is this going to be, and at $30 to $40 an hour, if that's what you're going to agree to, how much money would that actually be? And would that actually be enough for you to say, I'm going to take this on and delay doing something else that could be a higher revenue generating activity, or the potential for a higher revenue generating activity in my business? I would consider that for making that decision. Katarina says, like with the kids' camps all over, volunteering, household chores. Yeah. So I totally get it. I have that too. So looking for, again, like ways to streamline I mean, you're probably already committed to camps, but like one of the things I do is like, I try and keep the camp routine very consistent so that we aren't running around as much. I have, try and ask for help in terms of the actual transportation. But really having that combined calendar is really important so that you can see when, when you need to be where. And even just like thinking about grouping like with like. So if you know you've got a lot of transportation on a day for a kid, like maybe, the day that you're driving them to one place is the day that you're also going to go to the design center and source because you're already out driving. Things like that can really actually add up quite a bit when you can capitalize on, like if you're already out of the office versus in the office. Let's see here. Okay, how do you get comfortable saying no to clients that you want to help, even though they're not ideal? I find myself discounting services or saying yes to low budgets to help them and end up regretting it. Okay, so a lot of my clients have this struggle, so you're not alone. But really, the way that you get comfortable saying no is by saying no. So you have to practice being in the discomfort of saying no in order for it to get comfortable. You have to build that evidence of you can say no and survive and be there for yourself on the other side of it. And that really helps build that confidence. Another thing that clients will do is they will have, I think it can really be helpful to have a tighter filtering process before the client ever speaks to you. So a great intake form that's going to give you the details of their project. So that way, by the time you actually speak to them, you know that they're likely going to be a fit. And so there's less of that face-to-face no. Clients will, have an email template that is the no essentially. That can help too, if it feels really challenging to say no in person. Let's see here. Melinda says, this is probably my over perfecting, but I'm always paralyzed when it comes to booking out my calendar. What tips do you have to plan out an ideal week? Can you tell me what you're paralyzed about with booking out your calendar? Because that feels like different than an ideal week. But I would for sure start to think about what you want your work hours to be. That is the very first place to start is, what do I want my work hours to be? How many hours do I want to work per week? And then a huge part of this is going to be willing to get started and then evaluate consistently along the way. So using that, what I talked about, curious evaluation, that's something that when I teach clients time management in Out of Overwhelm, every week we're evaluating what worked, what didn't work, and what we're going to do going forward. Because wanting to get your calendar perfect is what's stopping you from getting it perfect. So I know that, I totally get it. I, worked a lot on perfectionism myself, and that is something that I find is a common thread with my clients. I've actually got a module in Out of Overwhelm that discusses the link between putting things off or procrastination and perfectionism, because this is such a common pattern that I see with my design clients. So kind of being willing to get it wrong before you get it right. All right. Any other questions? I have a little flexibility here in terms of staying on. So if you do have another question, I'm happy to answer it for you. Or you can always reply to the email that sent out your workbook. Looks like we're wrapping up on questions here. So great to work with all of you. I hope you stay in touch, or if you want to reply and let me know just what came up for you during this detox, or what you're taking action on from the detox. I would love to hear that. I love to do these workshops, and I also really love to connect with all of you face to face or over email, get that personal connection. Oh, Susan says, my time was wrong today and I'm at the end. Will I be able to rewatch? Yes, there will be a replay that goes out, Susan. So you are good to go. All right. And then if you want to keep in touch, of course, the podcast is a great way to do that. The Interior Design Business CEO is the name of the podcast. And I've got a lot of topics that relate to what we covered today and also some of the questions. So be sure to check that out. All right. Thank you for everyone who's saying thank you. My pleasure to be here. And oh, Leanne, hi. It's so good to see your name here. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will hopefully talk to you soon. All right. Bye.